Congressional elections. Just like you would have a primary for president, you have primaries at the congressional level. Potential Republican congressional candidates and Democratic candidates battle out to be the ultimate nominee for their party. There is congressional elections every even-numbered year. So even when we don't have a presidential election, you have an opportunity to vote for your Congress members. So we will have a congressional election in 2014 in about a year and a couple of weeks from today's date. The House of Representatives, they have a congressional election, or they have an election every 2 years, and every member of the House is up for re-election at that point, unless they decide to quit, of course. Then you have the Senate, and the Senate's a little bit more complicated. They have staggered elections. A third of the Senate, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years. And that's called staggered because we do not vote in or out all of the Senate at once. Your Senate terms are 6 years, and every 2 years, 1/3 of those senators have to run for re-election. Now, the reason why we have staggered elections in the Senate is to bring stability and to make sure you always have senators who know what's going on with the lawmaking process serving in the Senate. And it also prevents a faction from taking over the Senate. This wasn't some new-fangled, made-up idea. We actually use this system in Virginia, and that's where James Madison came up with the staggered election idea. So, key to staggered election, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years to promote stability within that House. Off-year elections or midterm elections, they occur on the years that there is no presidential election, and because there's no presidential election in those off-year or midterm election years, they have lower turnout. Okay, the coattail effect. Okay, coattail effect, you got to have a popular presidential candidate. Okay, and if you have a popular presidential candidate running for office, a lesser-known candidate from the same party can benefit from being on the same ticket. So people might vote for the Senate or the House candidate simply because they're the same party. So if Chris Christie won the nomination in 2016, people might vote for a Republican senator or a Republican House member if Chris Christie is really popular in public opinion polls. Okay. Expanding the power of the people or the electorate. When you're talking about the people in a voting capacity, you're going to call them the electorate because they're the ones responsible for getting people elected. Oops, let me fix it. That's fine. Okay. So when you're talking about expanding the power of the people, you're expanding the power of the voters to make decisions. The first time, and all of this, to be honest with you, this is all phenomenon that was born out of the progressive era. If you remember, the progressive era was to try to stop corruption within the government, stop party machines like Boss Tweed, try to reform the government, making the government more fair and clear. So an easy way to make the government more fair and clear in a democracy is to give the people more power. One way we gave the people more power is through initiative. We allow voters to petition or propose policy, and that would look like if the voters of California wanted to see a piece of legislation that would build a fence across the border with California and Mexico, the voters of that state could propose that policy, and then it would have to go to vote. So it's kind of like the voters becoming legislators. Referendum allows citizens to vote directly on issues. Generally, these issues are called propositions, or you can vote to amend the state's constitution. We in Virginia have the power as voters to pass amendments to our state constitution. We don't really have the power to vote directly on legislation, but before the General Assembly decides to change our Constitution, they put it before us. The voters of Michigan passed a referendum to end affirmative action policies when colleges are accepting applicants. So in Michigan, the people said that race should not be considered when admitting people into higher education institutions. And that actually is going before the Supreme Court today, October the 15th. So just as an aside. And the Supreme Court's going to decide whether or not the people have the power to make such a racially charged decision. Recall. Total recall. The people of California voted out their governor. They didn't feel like their governor was doing a good job. So they voted him out, and they held a special election to appoint Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor of California. So that was a couple of years ago. A recall is a special election initiated by a petition to kick out an elected officer. And that's before that elected officer is up for re-election. So you're kicking a government official out early. Total Recall. Sorry. That's a really good movie. Y'all should watch it. I don't know about the new one, but the old one with Arnold Schwarzenegger is pretty good. Okay. Direct elections. Direct elections of senators started with the 17th Amendment. Before the 17th Amendment, state-level congresses or legislators voted for Senate. We didn't even vote for Senate. Okay, and then last but not least, primary elections. Before the progressive era, political party elites, like the heads of the political party, nominated or handpicked candidates in what's called smoke-filled rooms, where you would have a bunch of highfalutin people sipping on brandy, smoking cigars, and deciding who was going to be the candidate for the political party in the upcoming election.